times. So much so, he has
almost needs a mailbox.
Well, he's almost worn out his welcome a couple times, actually. St. Louis County Police Association spokesperson, Gabe Crocker. Gabe, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, McGraw.
Also
morning,
with
Kelly.
us,
Morning.
Also with us is Elizabeth Snyder, who is the widow of Blake Snyder, who was shot and killed in the line of duty in early October
Yes.
of last year. So it's only been a
Yes.
few months.
Yes.
Gabe,
Just a few.
we'll start with you. You're here to talk about Prop P, which is going to go on the ballot for St. Louis County voters
Yes.
next Tuesday.
April 4th, and we're encouraging as part. That's why we're out talking today, and that's why I'm here with Elizabeth, at least in part, is to talk about the benefits of Prop P. Just like anything, there's some criticism, there's some support, but I've been coming on this show now for a few years. Like you said, I'm worn out the welcome a time or two, but hey, eventually you get tired of me banging on the glass out in the front to talk about policing issues. But I'm always proud to do it, and I'm always happy to be here. And Proposition P is really the culmination of a lot of work. I've been very open and honest with my criticisms about some government officials, but I'll really hand it to Steve Stenger. He has been a stalwart, die-hard supporter of this and has pushed for it and has used a lot of political power to get this thing pushed forward. And I think it addresses and answers a lot of the issues that I've talked about for years on your show. Largely the police pay, but also safety equipment, two officer units, all sorts of great stuff that will benefit not only the St. Louis County Police Department, but also municipalities in our area as well.
All right, it's St. Louis County voters only.
Correct.
And one of the big ones is 2 police officers per car.
Sure.
How big of a deal is that?
That's a big deal for us because what it does is it cuts down on certain types of response times, and what I mean by that is like a secondary response time. So what will happen is you're dispatched to a disturbance or some kind of call, and one police officer will arrive, and then it may take minutes for another police officer to arrive. So particularly 2 officer units in certain areas. Okay, now there are some areas in St. Louis County where that may not be wholly necessary, but there are special areas in St. Louis County. Now that just doesn't mean, that means shopping districts and high volume areas where we get a high volume of calls for various reasons. Having 2 officer units in there provides immediate safety for the officers that are responding. And it keeps more officers in service because you have, instead of taking 2 cars to go to one location,
Right.
you have 1 car to go to one location with 2 officers.
Elizabeth, was your husband in a single car, or was he by himself?
He was by himself,
He was by himself. Remind people what happened.
So he was dispatched to a call, a disturbance call. A young man was harassing his ex-girlfriend, I believe, and he had returned to his car. So Blake pulls up. He's by himself. He gets out of his car. His partner, his secondary officer, has not showed up yet. He approaches the car. The kid pops out of his car, and then it happens. So, and at that time, his secondary officer was just showing up. So I cannot stress enough how important it would be to have 2-man cars for St. Louis County. It's necessary. It's a safety net for them. It makes them feel more secure and more confident. It would be helpful.
Also in this, Gabe, is cameras. So all St. Louis County police officers will have cameras?
So that will be something that, again, Chief Belmer's going to look at, and we've already looked at in the future. We've tested body cameras. That's a growing technology and a growing industry. They have cameras that can be in the car and out of the car, and cameras that rotate, and new technologies that are coming forward. And so we have a lot of support for the body camera program, or just at least some kind of video program that records it, audio, video in the car, on the officer. There's positives and negatives, ups and downs for all of those. And I think it's just a matter of hammering out the details of what's best for St. Louis County.
Are there currently body cameras? No.
We're not currently using them in St. Louis County, but again, you're talking about money that we don't have, and that's, again, Proposition P.
Right. Proposition P for St. Louis County voters, it's 0.5 of 1%.
Yeah, it's a small amount.
On purchases. They want to raise $80 million a year, and Steve Stenger was on the show last week. It would, a typical family of 4, it would cost an extra What did he say? $10 a year? Or
Yeah,
something?
it's a very, very low amount.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what's difficult for us when we hear, Elizabeth's story. And Elizabeth has become just a huge beacon of hope for police officer wives and husbands, spouses, families, all of those folks. And Elizabeth puts herself out there. And this is about Blake, and this is about the other police officers that have been injured and killed in St. Louis County.
Elizabeth, you're very much in favor of Prop P, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
You were thrust into the spotlight through, I mean, you seem like a very lovely woman, but you don't seem to be one that would seek the spotlight.
Oh no, if you knew me, I would not be in the spotlight. I mean, I was thrown into it, and I got a lot of criticism for it because I took it and I ran with it. And I chose to stand up for law enforcement and our brothers and sisters in blue. And I'm going to continue to do so because that's the right thing, and they need it. They need all the help they can get.
What do you mean by criticism? What kind of criticism did you get?
Mostly on my social media accounts, even on interviews I've done, on being on TV. I get a lot of harsh criticism for putting myself out there, for grieving in public, showing people how I'm grieving, how my family is grieving, which I believe is very important for the public to know and to help out. This helps with Prop P as well. I mean, come on, if there were two-man cars, I'm not saying it could have been different with Blake, but it could have been different, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Response times, it could have been different. So this small tax could help a lot of our future officers, our young officers, our old officers, all of them.
Yeah. I don't want to say you've lived your life on social media, but you're a younger woman. You're the next generation. That's what people of your age do.
Yeah.
You lived your life, and you were not shy about telling people how hard it was to get over the loss of a husband.
No, I'm not shy about it at all. I want people to know that grief is very real, that reality is very real, that it can happen to anyone, that you don't know if it's going to happen to you, if you don't know if your loved one's going to come home the next day. So, yes, I'm going to put it out there.
Elizabeth, how are you guys doing now?
We're doing well. We are. We're still staying really busy. We're good. Yeah.
You have a 2-year-old son.
Yes, Malachi.
Does he know? Have you told him? Is he cognizant? How is that going?
He doesn't really know what happened, and I'll leave that for a time when he can really understand it. He knows that his daddy's not around anymore. He'll still look at his pictures and say, "Mommy, Daddy," all of that kind of stuff, and look at it in happiness and see Blake's pictures in happiness, and I'm happy for that right now. So when he gets a little bit older, I'll really explain it, and he'll really know what happened.
We talk a lot about backstoppers here on the show, and a lot of the guys come here and talk about backstoppers. Very rarely do we get a chance to talk to somebody on your end from backstoppers.
Sure.
Tell us what backstoppers meant for you in that time.
They are awesome. They're a perfect organization for someone in my position and all of the families in the same position that I've been in, because they were just there for us as soon as we needed it, financially, emotionally, just a big hug for us. It was a very big safety net. They helped out with finances. They helped because, Blake was our breadwinner. I mean, I work at the zoo and whatever, but I was full-time in school and he was a breadwinner. So whenever that income was lost in a heartbeat, Backstoppers was there to help us out.
Elizabeth Snyder, explain what's the one thing, Prop P, not Prop P, what's the one thing you want us to know about a wife whose husband was shot and killed in the line of duty? What is it you want us to know?
I just want everyone to know how important it is to know that police have lives, they have families, and they have love. Not all of them are bad. Of course, there's a bad apple in each bunch, in every profession. But, I love Blake. I still love Blake with every fiber of my being, and I miss him, and people need to realize that that's a reality.
That is Elizabeth Snyder, who lost her husband, Blake, in a shooting back in October. 5 months later, she's out talking about Prop P. I tell you what, I don't know if I could get up out of bed 5 months later. So,
McGraw, let me just say, Elizabeth has shown us all a side of this tragedy that no one has had exposure to before, and we've seen it or we've met families of fallen officers, but she shares so openly, and she has such a huge following, and so many people care about her and her son and what happened to Blake. and that includes everyone in the St. Louis area and nationwide. I mean, she went to Washington, D.C., and she's just been all over, and she's a strong supporter of the police. And
we admire.
We love her and thank her very much for
And
everything.
your strength, we so admire
Oh,
that.
thank you.
Keep-
The community is still there for you.
Thank you.
Keep talking. Keep talking.
I will.
Don't let
I
anybody.
will.
Don't let anybody shut you up.
Absolutely.
I will.
Keep talking. Gabe, what do you want people to know about Prop P? What's the final word?
Okay, Proposition P. Our president, the president of the St. Louis County Police Association, Joe Patterson, yesterday said it best. It is the single most important public safety initiative in the history of St. Louis County. It addresses every single thing that I've come in here and talked about for years, and that is community outreach and certain types of crime fighting and technologies and body cameras and 2-officer units and pay and comparable and fair pay salary structures for the St. Louis County Police Department. It'll also have an effect on the municipalities throughout St. Louis County. Again, this is county-wide. If you live in Florissant, you live in Bridgeton, you live in any municipality in St. Louis County, we want you to vote yes on Prop P. We have the support of so many organizations. Yeah, there's some criticism out there, but, for instance, the Chesterfield mayor has not been silent about his opposition to this, yet the Chesterfield Police Officers Association and the West County businesses have all endorsed Proposition P. They're not as worried about this for the quote-unquote political reasons. I think they realize we need St. Louis County to be safe. We've had mega donors donating to the Proposition P cause because they realize that their businesses and their investments are protected when police officers are protected and when police officers are able to control crime and fight crime.
We should also say that, from what I understand, Gabe, is that the money is spread equally amongst all of the police departments. So Florissant gets their share, St. Louis County gets their share.
There is a formula,
Right.
and it is largely based in part on population and also on the amount of tax dollars. And there's a formula that is utilized, and that's available. The best place I can send you to is stltoday.com. Christine Byers has done some work on it and shared very publicly where this money's going and how it's going to be divvied up. So on
Right.
and
So
forth.
if someone's living in, say, Florissant and has
Yes.
their own police department,
Yes.
they're getting some of this money as well.
Absolutely, and
that
it's
was
up
my
to the
point.
people, and it's up to the people and the voters in those cities to hold their elected officials accountable. What we don't want to see, and what we have a very solid, firm handshake from our county executive, is that they're not going to take money and replace money, and that's a big thing for us. And it's up to the police officers and the citizens in these municipalities, and it's up to us as citizens in St. Louis County to hold our elected officials accountable. We don't want them removing that money and then supplanting is what it's called, and we don't want that to happen. We don't have that concern in St. Louis County, and again, I can't thank the county executive enough. I've been critical of him in the past. I've been critical of other leaders in our area, but there's no ill will there. I mean, I have seen him pick up where we kind of left off last time, and we were kind of butting heads a little bit, and he said, enough of this. Let's work together. Let's move forward. And I was blown away by the county executive's response to this. And we have a ballot measure on here to address all of the problems that I've talked about for years.
Next Tuesday on the St. Louis County ballot, Prop P, which is 1/2 of 1 cent.
Yes.
Sales tax, county-wide, county voters. Gabe Crocker, you please lose my number.
Okay.
Elizabeth Snyder, you are always welcome here whenever you have anything to say.
You have
Thank
found a
you.
replacement.
You are always welcome here. Thank
Thank you.
All right. 7:30.